appreciate your continued commitment and active participation as we build on the concepts and discussions from our previous sessions. Today, we will further explore key topics, engage in meaningful learning activities, and strengthen the knowledge and skills that you can apply in practice. Just a few reminders in terms of today's session. Please keep your microphones muted unless you're speaking. Use your real name. I've noticed that there are people who haven't identified themselves, and so it would be good practice if we do so for attendance and participation purposes. Participate actively in discussions and activities. You may use the chat box for questions and technical concerns. And if you do run into any type of technical issue, please let us know so that we can assist you. Be respectful of everyone's ideas and maintain professional online etiquette. Okay, I think I covered all the bases in terms of the reminders themselves. Professor Marisol, do you have anything else to add before we get started?
Good morning. Just say to greet everybody, and well, I hope you have a nice journey and in this second trip of knowledge. So God bless you all, and have a good one.
Okay, well, without any further ado, first of all, let us have a productive and engaging learning session. And with that, I'm going to hand the torch to Professor Cardenas. Good morning once again. And we look forward to more enriching experiences from your expertise. Enjoy the session.
Thank you very much, Professor, for the introduction. Thank you very much for your attendance. Well, today's our second day of today's session. My question is my volume good enough?
You sound
High
perfectly.
enough?
Yeah, there are no issues.
All right, thank you very much. Because as you know, generally, we tend to think that this is equivalent to attending a face-to-face session. Indeed, thank you very much. Indeed, it is not. We have some limitations. Sometimes audios tend to cut off, and all kinds of situations occur. Okay, by the way, I'd like to refer to something. I'm in the process of updating a Google Classroom for our session. I am not done in that process yet for several reasons. One of those is that I am in the process of posting our one and only summative activity that is going to be there hopefully uh, tomorrow, Wednesday. The other thing is I have stacked my Google capacity at this moment, and I'm in the process of deciding what to take down. All right, and this is delaying things a bit for me because, as you know, we're in the academic recess period, so this is kind of slowing things down. So hopefully by tomorrow you're going to be seeing not only a a changed version of that Google Classroom Access that you were provided, but also some updates and an activity that is going to be is essential, right, for both the certificate program grading and as well as for the seminar grading. So what I mean by this is there is going to be one and only one activity that is going to be counting both for both programs as if it were just one. So, and making some decisions in this regard is something that is delaying things. I tried to take care of that business last night, but I must confess that took me a while because I'm keeping some information, I'm discarding other, and I'm to some extent running out of space, really. So this is the reason why you haven't seen that. But I'm gonna be telling you to go there um, soon enough, hopefully, so that you start taking care of that business. We don't have to worry so much about deadlines. Like, for example, some may worry that we're finishing the program on Friday. That we have to submit everything on a short notice by Friday. No, I don't. I don't really think so. Okay, so we're gonna give you a couple grace period, right? Like probably maybe a couple of extra days beyond Friday. That's my intention, so that you get the chance to go over the resources and wrap up everything that we are discussing in this seminar and certificate program. Um, All right. Yesterday I presented to you some topics that are the matter of or the subject matter of this translation program. A translation is always challenging uh, because the expectations are pretty high for translators. Translators are expected to be language experts. That is what is expected from someone who has a seal stamp and the accreditation to hand out some business cards and say that they are qualified to translate or interpret. Um, the quality of our work is always in line, in by being in line. What I mean is, you have to show, that knowledge is very important. This is something that people tend to overlook and assume that having some knowledge of a language is enough. The reality is that we never finish learning. Okay, I must say this: we never finish learning about languages. There's so many topics and such a variety of things that we need to focus ourselves on. That program that a University of Panama designed originally, several years ago, many years ago, I should confess, um, focuses on two key areas, right? Two key areas that are part of our market: commercial and legal translation. Uh, Both of them are in high demand and remain in high demand. However, it's also important to highlight that there are very good reasons to bring those specific and concrete areas of translation to this seminar discussion, because not only because they're in high demand and people are willing to pay you for your services translating those kinds of documents, namely, once more, commercial and legal. It's not only that. The situation is that any good translator or interpreter should at least have one area of expertise or one area that is a branch of translation he or she should declare his specialization on. Uh, if you're a general translator, that's very limited, honestly, because we see this not only from the academic perspective, but also from a market perspective. Um, there's some things you can do, but you cannot really do much in one regard, which is in high demand or fairly more common, and that kind of situation scenario. So if you have not obtained your translator's license, which is not limited by not having a degree in translation, I should confess, because you can go ahead and obtain one. It's very necessary for you to at least start specializing in one area. Okay, that could be something of your choosing, something that you are more familiar with, something that you enjoy working on. Okay, this is very, very important. And whoever embarks in the activity needs to keep that in mind. Okay, we're going to resume our presentation from where we stopped yesterday. I'm going to make sure we go back to that very same slide. So let me just get there and we'll resume from there. Okay, we're gonna take it up right from there. Allow me a second, please. Hopefully my screen is sharing. Yeah, is it all visible to you?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you very much. So what we were saying about the role of the notary in both languages, English and Spanish, or the language, pair that is our main area of expertise, is that a notary in the United States plays a minor role compared to a notary in Latin America. This is a legal role because they're both legal. One of them is under the umbrella of a government and has some much more I will say capacity and has a major participation in legal dealings. Uh, the other one in the United States is not the same. It's much more limited, and however, these are cognates. They're words that look and may be assumed to be the same. However, it's very important to get into the details and discover that a notary is not the same as a notario in Latin America. They're not the same. Legal systems are not the same, and this is part of the reason why there's this big difference. And then recapping on what we were saying about the Anglo-Saxon versus the Napoleonic code system, our system is in transition. However, it is still code law compared to case law, which is the Anglo-Saxon counterpart. We need to gain an awareness of this. Is that a topic we can discuss fully in a seminar? I really don't think so. Okay, I doubt it because there is so much to read and discuss about those two different legal systems that we will be that's just beyond the scope, right? Completely. Um, I would recommend very much, if ever, the situation or the we have a situation in which we may be in demand of a seminar for translators. I would recommend very much that we found two professionals, or one at least, who could really come and talk to us about what it is behind this case law and code law quagmire, because there's the two ends of the spectrum, and there is an in between a stage where, for instance, countries like ours, Panama, is going through. Most of these systems are under revision, and they're turning into something else, which is more like hybrid. Okay, it's hybrid-like. We deserve to know a little more about what it is that is really transpiring. The problem is the people who understand this generally in our context will not be able to deliver much of this information in English. most of this information is available in Spanish, so it's going to be more like a Spanish-like type of seminar. So, but this is so necessary because the field is changing, and what people knew is useless in many cases, right? It's useless. I'm talking about legal translation specifically. Many of the things we learned before, they're useless right now, okay? Because it has turned completely hybrid now. It's not anymore code law 100%. It's like 50-50 now, and it's an in-between a situation or status for law, right? And it's not fully the other way around, Anglo-Saxon or case law either. But since there is so much exchange of information between the two countries, essentially the U.S., which is a major player in our region, and our smaller countries in Central America, it's very important that we learn and discover more. I strongly recommend, if you ever care to know more, to look for any of those, law faculty seminars that would enlighten people in terms of what's going on with the case law and the code law cases or scenarios, right? So I would say it would be enough to say that it would be more than irresponsible for us to say or consider that we know the role of a legal figure or representative, and as in the case of a notary or notario, just because of the similarity of the two names, okay? We need to gain awareness of the problem with the cognates. This is a part of this. This is, I would say, the closest it can impact what we know already, because cognates is something that is not going to go away. It is always going to be there, and we need to understand that we need to live with this phenomenon. Nevertheless, that should not prevent us from talking about or discussing in this seminar what is essential for any legal translator, essential knowledge, I would say. Okay, so we have essential information about legal translation for translators, of course, coming from our part of the world or our part of reality, right? From our perspective. So once more, we're going to emphasize on the same thing we were talking about. Translation in general, specifically legal translation, is not simply translating words. It is translating legal meaning between different legal systems, okay? And this is generally a tall order for anybody coming from any background. Don't assume people, for example, who study in the States have it easier. They are also challenged by this because the activity is not an easy one, and that requires, of course, knowledge, right? English-speaking countries, especially the US and the UK and Latin American countries, often have different legal traditions, terminology, and formats in their documentation, okay? Over there, we'd like to emphasize very much that you do not need to become an attorney, but you should understand how legal documents function. Essentially, that's the most important part, and we'll be looking at that, right? The core areas we should, pay attention to or try to become ourselves, knowledgeable about are contract law, corporate law, civil, criminal, immigration, family, real estate, probate, and state law. Chances are, from, at least from a couple of these, you have already seen some work or done if you have experience. If you haven't translated yet, some of that work is going to come from one of those areas, one of these areas that I'm presenting to you right now. And of course, each and every one of them you know, it's like covering, you know, some kinds of documents concerning the different procedures that are taking place, right? For contract law, in general, legal programs, they start talking to you about agreements. And they used to talk about creating a corporation and that kind of thing. A lot of this has changed very much. Our legal system doesn't have as much freedom as it did in the past concerning the creation of corporations because of some agreements that the government has already established with international organizations that are, persecuting crime or criminal activity of different sorts. So we need to really get updated in terms of what it is that we could get our involved in terms of agreements, terms of conditions, breaches, liabilities, indemnification of that kind of anything that is contractual. Corporate, the articles of incorporation, as I was saying, this is now a red area. We need to learn more about it because it has changed. There's also bylaws that we need to learn. Some of them are regional, some of those are super regional, and some of them are local. But we need to really discover concerning the activity that we are doing if eh, we know we're familiar with them. Okay, shareholder agreements, mergers of different kinds, from civil law, lawsuits, damage evidence, damages evidence, judgments. All of that is subject to a translation work, or a translator, bona fide translator with a seal and stamp and signature could take care of any of these documents. Criminal law also, of charges, indictments, pleas, sentencing, immigration. As you can see here, this is a niche here because it's in high demand. Many people in consulates, of course, take care of this, as in visas, asylum, naturalization, affidavits, proof of life, etc., etc. So, family, you have there also a lot of it that goes into consulates, national consulates. I mean by this, the Panamanian consulate. I think Panama has different consulates in the States, for example, that I know of. I know there is one in Tampa. There's another one in Dallas. There is also another one in New York. And I assume there must be another one somewhere, probably another one of the major cities over there, either LA or Chicago. I cannot tell you for sure, but if we go into the website of the Panamanian Embassy, they will tell you, a list of where the Panamanian consulates are. And from these places, you will or probably get or see documentation being processed from the American government or legal system into ours, Panamanian one. And as you know, lawyers are not always translators, so they may need to resort to someone to translate work for them, right? The good thing is a lot of this work, once you do it, you keep your model, then you can probably repeat it. Nevertheless, it's not always the case. As you know, things are changing and they're reforming, right? Something without our control, out of reach for us. Real estate, you see here some of the key words or processes: deeds, leases, mortgages, title documents, property and estate law, and the wills and the trust and powers of attorney. All of those are documents that you could eventually translate or find someone translated, and you'll have to get familiarized to some extent with them. They're grouped, right? As you see, there's contract, corporate, civil, criminal, immigration, family, real estate, probate, and legal systems matter more than vocabulary. It's very important that we bring this topic up here in this seminar, that the legal systems differ, and we need to be humble enough to assume that we don't know everything. We cannot tell anybody, especially a client, someone requesting a translation from us, that we know what that is. We need to find out. It's very important that you know where to ask and what questions to ask in order to be a good source of information for someone who is looking for service, right? At least we should have a Panamanian local lawyer who could provide some experience-based opinion. So once more, we should bring this, that the U.S. law is based on common law, right? Common law, that's another name for case law. And most Latin America follows civil law, which is the Napoleonic code law system, right? And it means that legal concepts have no exact equivalent, okay? It's always an assumption that we know what the meaning of something is, just because we're familiar with it. It's always a good idea to go back and check out, double check. Legal translator must know when to translate literally. Sometimes it's possible. Adapt terminology. Okay, that's another function of a translator. But in order to do so, you need knowledge behind you, right? You need some backup. Explaining a concept is also key. And for you to explain something, you have to know it first. So we need to be humble enough, again, to understand that knowledge is what is going to take us places. So if you don't like reading very much, at least you should have someone you could talk to or ask questions concerning things that you may be in doubt. I recommend this and say this in the seminar because this is what legal translation is. It's knowledge that is in action, knowledge in action, right? And for us to do this effectively, we need to learn more. Leave the original term with an explanation, or leave the original term with an explanation. Sometimes there is no equivalence, and the right thing to do in order to avoid ambiguity, right? Because that's the right word, is to go ahead and help out, providing a note or explanation on a concept that could be very ambitious or very wide in terms of the meaning, right? Precision is very important. This is another important aspect of legal translation, okay? Legal translation probably is, I should say, since the volume of writing that is produced every day in the world should probably be the largest area under the umbrella of general translation. So that is why reading more is never too much. We cannot read too much about legal topics. Okay. In our context, some people assume that being a lawyer is just a 5 or 4 years program that you go and that's it. And they don't want, you see, the bar system of exams. But there is a very good reason why this is going to be enforced, either we like it or not. This is coming back anyway. And the reason is because things are very complicated. And since there is so much to learn, it's just like translation and any other of our fields, we'll never finish learning about it. Okay. So let's take the case of languages. Here we know Spanish, of course, and we know English. Okay. But don't you think that we know everything? We just don't know everything because there is so much more to continue learning. And this is something that we need to help people realize, so that The fact that we obtain a degree, it doesn't mean that we know everything concerning a field. We have achieved some probably, I don't know, kind of a stepping stone towards a becoming type of status, but we have not reached yet, not even with a master's, enough knowledge as to at least, be competent enough in the field. So there will always be someone who will know certain things that we just don't know, because it's almost impossible for a human being to get into so many things. Okay. And legal translation is one of those uh, minefields. Okay, you will always learn something new. So you're going to be surprised. We're always constantly surprised. So being in this field is extremely competitive. It's very difficult. You must preserve, all of this that is shown when you're translating. This is the essential. Understand the legal effect, so as for people to know that this information that you are submitting or sharing with them or translating for them is legally binding, and uh, there could be consequences and repercussions and all kinds of situations if they don't do what the law states, or ignoring the law doesn't make you an innocent being. You need to understand that you need to be aware of what it is that they're saying or stating concerning whatever procedure you're following, or if you're being accused, what to do, what is proper to do, what is improper to do, what could lead you into more trouble than necessary, and so forth. Obligations that we will have, we're entitled, of course. Some people, they just don't get this important point, is that the translator is also forced. You're bound. Once your signature is on a document, you're also part of that process. You need to understand that sometimes it's better to say no. You cannot be a yes man in legal dealing with legal documents, because if you're like that, you will not, you eventually get in trouble, because you're gonna say yes all the time. You have to read and understand what it is that they're requesting from you. Okay. Dates is also important. All this detailed information. And at the end of this list, I'd like to stress, and I cannot stress enough, the importance of this. One incorrect word may change legal responsibility. Okay. Something that is not clear, something that is improperly translated or understood wrongfully, by accident, misspelled or confused, or that becomes ambiguous, this is going to be also trouble for the translator. What common documents do legal translators or translators involved in legal procedures will mostly see? Okay, I'm providing here a list that I'm sure you're familiar with, right? Generally, in the graduate program in translation at the university, at the English department, what I have done myself and what I have been through is that I've been walked through, presented the rosary, right, of the most common legal documents a translator will, lay hands on. We have there many of the ones that we have either translated or seen translated by somebody else, either from our context or from elsewhere, right? All kinds of things that have to do with people's lives and activities. We may not see the importance, but it's an important and very necessary field. As a matter of fact, the reason why they're notaries, okay, the notaries exist, the notary as a person, is because there's so many of these procedures that require attention. that for courthouse is going to be almost impossible or for any legal office to, handle so much work, because it's for everybody almost that we need to consider the person could be doing all kinds of things like death certificates and records of different sorts, corporate and patent documents, non-disclosure, etc., etc. It's so much. And now my question is, how many of these have you seen yourselves? And I'd like to rephrase my question. Which ones you have not seen yet? I'd like to ask you. You have not seen yet.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Hi. Well,
Sharon, yes.
no,
Hi, good morning.
hi. Hi, hello. Now that you're asking for me, all of them are new. I haven't seen them just for me to translate as a translator. And even that word, affidavits, it's new for me. Maybe only the powers that we sign for a lawyer, but in Spanish, but not, I haven't had the opportunity to make or to see the rest of the documents that you are presenting on your screen.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. Um, Once more, this is beyond the scope of the seminar. If I were to present to you samples of these different documents and discuss what they do, but I think it is enough to say that it's a take away from this certificate program on the seminar, that you understand that it is your responsibility as someone who will eventually be translating, if you are going into the field or you're planning to do so, that you need
I
to get samples of these different documents in English and in Spanish, so as for you to familiarize yourselves with their function. Because as I was telling you before in a prior slide, um, understanding the legal system and the function of documents, or the what you do with them, is more important than knowing the specific language that is in it, because that may vary, and there's always a good chance for you to confirm meanings. But if you don't fully understand what is really going on from the legal perspective, then you will be making mistakes, and you're going to be more doing more harm than good. And that's not the role of a translator. Translator should be a facilitator, someone who's almost invisible in the process. Concerning research skills, it's very important for a good translator, a good professional in the field. In any book on translation training that may fall in your hands, and they're very good ones out there. As a matter of fact, I order one from Amazon on my way, in order to come to me. Uh, and I decided to get that one because I think it's one of the very, very best ones. Of course, generally we pay a larger fee for those books that are not so easily available of that sort. So, but the some books are worth adding to your personal library, which is something I strongly recommend. We don't talk about being a professional without having some personal library. Some people don't understand, or don't like the idea, or some people, they just tell you, why would I have books in the digital age in the 21st century? Look, we need those. We need those because a lot of the activities that we are doing, or that we are likely to become embarked on, will require us to have the same books other people read. So if people are still reading books and there is a code law system going, there is no way we can escape books. Okay, codes are books, and we need books anyway. So buying books is necessary. And well, here I have some of the information, right, that we need to keep handy. Some of it is possible to store somewhere in a hard drive, but many of them need to be printed so as for you to leaf through your documents and make sure you can get the necessary information. A lot of people take training to become legal interpreters, and this is essentially what a legal interpreter requires to know or have or acquire knowledge on in order to become certified. You need court terminology, okay? Very important, both in English and Spanish. Our friends here at El Ministerio Público, they're always looking for professional interpreters who could assist them. And they're willing to pay. They're willing to pay you for that. And by this, I mean some decent, salaries, at least temporarily. I don't know if they're still on the look for someone to fill those positions permanently. I don't know, but they need experts essentially on court terminology, people with good knowledge or solid background in legislation, with parallel legal documents, you see, as to be able to translate or produce a similar versions of the same document in two languages. This is something that not everybody can do. This is something that not everybody can do. And this is where money is. We don't have enough training in this, because in our context, all of this information is scattered. Okay? And our universities are not that specialized or big enough as to offer, for example, legal interpretation programs or certificate programs in legal interpretation and that kind of thing. We don't have anything like that. But if you browse online, you will discover this is necessary, right? Writing skills concerning writing and translation, namely legal. Excellent Spanish is just as important as excellent English. Okay, so we need to become more knowledgeable of legalese, both in English and Spanish, and all that involves, being able to write competently. Okay, and also understand that because you are translating for Panama, it doesn't mean that the same is valid, for example, in Argentina or Colombia or Mexico. Each one of these contexts, they have their own nuances or variations. And it is the translator's duty to make copies. Some people say, "No, why would you make copies of my document?" Well, look, if you're looking at something you've never seen before, you'd better save that so that you can learn about it. That's the reason why you make copies. Okay? You're making copies because you're learning, essentially. And since we don't know everything, and we shouldn't assume that we know everything, we need to at least keep a copy for our records, for the translator's records, on anything that is new. Okay, so another key takeaway from this seminar and this certificate program is that we need to focus very much on gathering information. So a good translator is also a researcher, an information gatherer, someone who is sniffing for what is new. And if you have not seen something, you let the person know that, okay, I really need to look into this. I want to make a copy of this, and I'm going to keep that. And then if you don't have anybody to ask, at least you should go for AI and ask them, okay, I'm going to show you DeepSeek or I don't know, Claude or whichever. Okay, I have this document on this issue and I don't know what this really is. Will you please explain to me? And some of the features will allow you to upload an image. just like you can create an image in any of those intelligences or AI. That's why AI is it's for education also. Then you should ask the AI. I don't know about this, and I don't have anybody who knows enough to tell me exactly what this is. So you tell me what this is, and then show me also in your prompt. You put there. I also need some good resource information that can take me places and make me understand this better, or how it works in the legal system in my country. And I'm sure the AI is there to assist you and at least give you a head start of where to go, right? Where to go. Or if you run into a document from Mexico, for example, and you have one from Panama and there are discrepancies, okay? Discrepancies, what you can do with an AI, open AI, is to post it over there. Now, if you want better answers, as you know, then you will have to create your session and so forth. But there are ways now for you to talk to some intelligence. You don't always necessarily rely on a lawyer because they just don't know everything either. That's another thing that you have to understand, that lawyers, it's not that they are not competent enough now, or that past time lawyers were better. No, things are different, and that's why they're also struggling. They're also struggling, and that's why they get associated. You see that they have their offices, and they don't keep the offices, just one major uh, partner. What they have is different lawyers working together, because they all try to deal with the same at different levels, or different areas of legal processing. What is essential for a good translator and legal translation? I cannot say this enough, that it's very important carrying or sharing or obtaining dictionaries. So what dictionaries are good for legal topics, right? Okay, here we go with some of the most important. I'm going to turn off my camera for a bit, okay? So you're going to be listening to my voice, but I'm going to turn it off right now. Sorry about that. So, yeah, here we have the Black's Law Dictionary. This is one of the better known ones. Please, either you take note or go ahead and write it down. If you ever, go to Amazon looking for a dictionary in legal topics, this is one of the most authoritative type of dictionaries, Black's Law Dictionary. Also, Alcaraz, Baró, and Hughes Diccionario de Términos Jurídicos. I think this is friendly enough for the non-initiated, right? For the non-initiated. Also, Tom West's Spanish English Dictionary of Law and Business. This is another big name that you need to remember. So some people still ask, like, oh, why should I invest in a dictionary if I can get all that from a database or elsewhere online? Look, internet is moving. You will not find it later. Okay, that's the reason why you need a dictionary, because at least at that moment in time, or at least for that window time period of probably 5 to 7 years, you could resort to some online help, but it won't be there forever. Okay, sooner or later they're going to start charging you for that. And as you know, in academy, we are more in favor of the free and open movement, that everything should be free and open, but this is not a reality. So everything is commercial and becomes business. So you cannot think that you're going to have the same things always within your reach without paying. So if you have to pay, why not buy, a dictionary instead, right? Keeping your own book, your own resource, your personal one. Now, These are all other kinds of resources that are established, and these are they've been standing for longer time because they belong to organizations, international organizations that um, have remained, through time, and some of them are from the European Union, UN, even the Canadian government, and believe it or not, one of the highly regarded online apps or web-based app type of services that you can get into, especially because it is freely accessible, at least now, is Lingway. Okay, and if you're dealing with a parallel text that you are comparing in the two languages, this is a very good one, uh, especially for dealing with documents that you're unfamiliar with. eh, Lingway, it's a very good resource. So here we're naming some of the, better knowns that they work, that they, you know, could help you out solve any legal situation. Okay. Before I continue, I'd like to ask you how many of you hold a personal library, or how many of you have stopped to count how many books you have in your library. That this is a very good thing to reflect on, because this is not something that we talk about very often. People, they just don't see the importance. If you ask our current younger folks, they younger generations, so this Gen Z people, they or millennials, they don't believe in libraries. What's your opinion on this, please? I'd like to listen to a couple of your opinions.
Hi, good morning.
Good
Well,
morning.
I think it's I really love the fact that you are emphasizing that nowadays we should have a library. Um, I do have a couple books. Matter of fact, I'm not really into the online reading because you get distracted easily. I believe that having physical books will help you. It depends also on the way you learn. I am very visual, so I need to have a physical book. I think it's essential in, and not only as a translator, but as an educator, we should all have physical books, and we encourage students to read. So why not have books?
Oh, okay, thank you very much for all that input. Good. So probably you are a believer. Maybe you feel you have improved your education through reading some books or keeping books at home that are available for you to go back to. The fact that you are attending this seminar or this type of education, which is ongoing, is attests to the importance of trying to keep ourselves updated. I don't know if you have other opinions concerning this or other experiences that are worth sharing here concerning the importance of libraries or personal libraries.
Yeah, good morning. Katia Medina here. I wanted to ask you, I see you're talking a lot about translating legal documents. Is that something you usually do? Do you work with legal documents?
Yeah, this is part of our background, what we see, what we have seen, okay, throughout our professional lives. Most of these documents is all of this. So I don't know. I'd like to know what you think about keeping a library to deal with more
Yeah,
of it and promoting yourself as a translator.
yeah. Well, not about a library, but I wanted to ask you that because just asking, do you, for example, if you translate a legal document, I I guess these legal documents usually have certain lines that are repeated through the legal documents, right? So do you have like a yourself, you have a library like for certain lines that are usually in these legal documents that you know how they are translated in English and Spanish, for example, and you have like a library of your own with these phrases that you know are repeated in these legal documents?
No,
Not, I'm
no,
not
for
talking about a library per se, but I mean, you know, like a list of phrases that are usually used in these documents, and you already know, okay, this is translated as this, so you just change like the things that are different. I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
yeah, yeah. If work is repetitive, what we generally use is a translation memory. Translation memory. There are quite a few of those available for free out there. Uh, I'm gonna be probably showing some of that in the next slide. Probably. Let me see. No, not here. But I will eventually get to that because translation memories is what is gonna lighten the load of having to repeat yourself so much. So that is why I was saying it's important to make copies of what you see or keep a copy of a file or digital file or print it or printout of anything that you don't see very often. It's because you can, load that as in a software like a translation memory, such as in the case of MemoQ or any other that Omega T, I think that's the name, and or any other that is available out there that you could resort to. Yeah, I hope that answers your inquiry.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so moving along, parallel documents. Okay, it's important to study real bilingual documents. Okay, um, and where do you think this is going to come from? This is all going to come from your personal records, where you have immigration forms, contracts, court decisions, and treaties, government publications, and this is the way we solve translation problems because eh, being someone who's a researcher requires studying from real documents, learning what a judge uh, could say, or maybe a lawyer, maybe a legal office, some of their rulings and the way they proceed, familiarizing ourselves with the procedures. This is something that requires handling. Uh, of course, as I was saying, we're not leaving out technology. Technology plays an important role in all of this, but this is not technology is not going to replace your curiosity and your becoming an avid reader. As a good thing to do. Some style guides also. We need those, right? What do we need? Well, plain English legal drafting guides, okay? Spanish legal style manuals, UN translation guidelines, European Union translation guides, okay? I don't know if you're familiar with these types of documents. I'd like to ask you if you've ever seen any of them and if you keep them. Any of your contributions is welcome. My question was this. I'm going to repeat it again. What style guides do you hold in your possession? It doesn't necessarily have to be for legal translation. It could be for anything else that you could do, because style guides are necessary. So necessary. Which ones do you hold in your possession? Just to give you an example, at Universidad de Panama, whenever we design any well-structured document that we use as part of our daily work, um, any of these creations requires us to fulfill certain format requirements. And these format requirements are designed in a way as for it to become valid. So the validity of any of these academic creations that we call it in administrative terms, ejecutoria académica, they require the structuring, the procedure, the following of certain steps. Now, those go along some style guide, because that's what it is really. Whenever at Universidad de Panama, we talk about um, ejecutoria, manual de presentación de ejecutorias, just to say that this is one big, document that is loaded with a manual. It's a manual for style, essentially. It's kind of a style guide on how to present what speech, conference, a seminar, certificate program, well, you name it. Now, that's one way of putting it. Now, there may be others. As a professional, have you ever used a style guide ever, or have you seen any of this anywhere?
Professor, so you're asking about like formats, specific formats that we need to convey in order to present a specific document. Like, for example, when we have power attorneys, they must be presented in long pages, like that,
Yeah, but
a
not for,
specific format.
we are not lawyers. So a power of attorney is something that a lawyer will do. I'm
I'm
asking
asking,
you, as an educator or ESL or literature professional, if you've ever become familiarized with a style guide. Have you ever seen that this is something that you need to follow? I don't know if you've seen this.
Just a question. Do you mean to say something along the lines of APA or Turibian?
Yeah,
Is that what you mean?
exactly,
Oh,
exactly,
okay.
exactly. Along those lines, exactly. As an educator or literature professor or anybody involved in language training, you should have come by at least, ever once maybe in our professional lives with these style guides, that they are always demanding us to adjust our work to some format in order for it to become valid. Well, this is the life of a translator, I should say, especially in the legal field. You have to always look for a document that is going to guide how you're going to be framing everything. We may think that we could do it any way we want, But look, I'm going to give you an example. At the English department, there was a call from someone coming from the States. And well, Felicia Jack, one of the secretaries, she called me like, Professor, we have somebody calling who graduated in the translation or master's program, I think, in English back in the day when Yvette de Puente was in charge of the program. So I was like, oh, okay. And what is going on? What do they need? Um, this person was working, I think, in Texas as an educator, and she needed some letter stating that the curriculum developed in the Masters of ESL was in English. So I needed to, create that letter. But then I realized that there wasn't any format for that kind of letter. Okay. So I needed to go to an open AI and ask, um, could you tell me where I could find some style guide for a letter certifying that a program was taught in English? Because I think this is what she needed in her office in San Antonio for her to become, I don't know, maybe licensed or obtain a temporary license. I don't know what it was. Then the OpenAI referred me over to some style guides used in the state of Texas. Then, even her husband went to the department looking for the letter. I told him, well, I did this and sent it over to the link or whichever mail it was that they were requiring that information to go there. And she graduated back in 2000 something, 2001 maybe, 2002, something like that. And I could not come up with a letter out of the sleeve or out of my hat, you see, out of the blue. What I needed to do was to look for some style guide for that kind of letter, because this is a document that I think does not exist in our context, that we need to explain to an office in Texas that a program here in Panama, which is Spanish speaking, was taught fully in English. They needed someone to sign that document, and everything worked. It worked for her, and I'm glad to say it was. But that was a case in which I had to run after some style guide, because where in the University of Panama will you find a format for something like that, like justifying that something was taught in English in Panama, which is Spanish speaking? So this is part of the challenge. You see, sometimes the challenge is going to come in different forms. Okay, sometimes you have to justify things that are like extremely unfamiliar. You just don't know what to write. How could I just like drop a line like X person took a program that contained X amount of hours and all these transcripts and so forth. And yeah, if even the transcripts are in Spanish because this is our legal language, but the contents were presented in English. And they did not ask me like, could you show me a sample, or could you show me a program in English, or no. Thank God that didn't, that it didn't work that way. But what they needed, I think it was enough. But if I did not have a style guide for that sort of thing, then I could have probably, made a terrible mistake. Here we go. Concerning the question that I was asked before, it's very important to lighten the load for the translator by familiarizing ourselves with CAT tools, okay? CAT tools. Once more, just like I was saying before, concerning legal systems like case law and code law, I should say this is another seminar in itself, okay? This is another topic all by itself, and this should be pretty much like a hands-on type of program that requires um, dealing with software that you will not learn on until you are really embarking a project. For example, what I'm familiar with, it's Omega T and MemoQ, which are free and open, but the others, they're pretty costly. Okay, I should say it's costly. There you have some of these that I think probably the most expensive one is Trados. And well, this is what people involved in this should be willing to pay, because it's part of the challenge. Now, I'd like to ask you if you've ever seen or heard of any of these technologies and your experience, please.
Yes, about cat tools, there are a lot of tools on the web for us to use and to know about a lot of. But as you mentioned, I'm not embarked in that field, so I just open, sometimes read, and I know that in if I have a given situation where I need to make some specific translation, there are a lot. Those that you are mentioning here, and a lot of them, more and more.
I believe, hi, good morning again. So I believe that um, when you're translating, I think context is very important because you can always look for resources. You go to AI, you type in resources for translating, it will always give you results. But I think that context and knowing a little bit of probably the culture, maybe technical words. It's more knowing about context, so you can not only translate words, but you can translate the essence of what the person in language one, like on the target language, wants to know or is interested in. It's a matter of translating the essence, what the person really wants to express, other than words.
So, the function or the role assumed for these tools is to make translators work easier, so that you don't have to start from scratch every time. That's why I was talking about translation memories before. Essentially, for example, what I know about Omega T and MemoQ is that they are mostly translation memories. What you do is that if you have to translate an X type of document very often, you will keep over there the most common information that is going to keep on appearing. Since these documents will vary, um, of course, you may need to, well, change the document or update it. But what this does is that you just need to feel um, uh, more essential information for a translation type of work that you need to do. But you're gonna keep the original document just to be filled out with some fields to fill, um, and that's going to shorten the load and make your work probably faster if you have to do repetitive work. Okay, this is useful for legal translation, for example, in which you have documents and that sort of thing. Not, of course, not for literary translation, because that's another thing completely, and we'll end up talking about all of that too. But here's more technical and in the niche of legal translation, something that is repetitive, maybe birth certificate, a death certificate, and affidavit. So maybe I don't know, maybe a proof of life, and whichever that is that comes out, that you'll have to translate maybe some academic transcripts and so forth. You don't have to write everything from scratch every time. You're going to keep the original stored in that software so as for you to change the information for the individual you're working for at a given time. So this is always thinking of the translator as a facilitator and someone who has limited time because of the client. Because a client wants everything for yesterday, as we all know. This is one of the disadvantages of translation, is that you have to always work under pressure. And this, of course, takes a lot of that pressure off the shoulders of the translator, and so that you don't have to take so long, right? Essentially, that is. My question is, are you planning to buy a book on CAT tools, or are you probably taking any online seminar on CAT tools, or will you be buying one of these softwares? Do you have anything in mind concerning the use of these technologies? Because look, the disadvantage with education is that we don't have that many technologies handy. That is not, something like AI or that sort of thing. But here in translation, there are some tools, very specific tools that could help you out with some heavier work, because translation is a lot of writing and typing. Essentially, that is. So I don't know, will you be using any of these soon? Or will you be interested in this topic?
And well, honestly, I think it's interesting. Um, that would definitely be challenging as well, because everything will be so new for me. So I would be interested in that. I'm not translating per se right now, but yeah, that would be interesting, because I would learn a lot doing that. So I would say yes, very useful.
Uh, Especially free and open tools is for freelancing, right? So if you offer your services, and well, you have some clients, of course you could work for them. But essentially, if you're working independently, having these tools on as part of your personal investment, you know, that's useful. So yeah, I don't know, I recommend at least keeping one of them, either commercial or free and open, or become interested in the topic, because you never know, you could benefit from it, right? That's the idea, that's the spirit. I hope
Yes.
this sparks some interest. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. How are you?
Mark.
I would like to share my experience in the past with these CAT tools. And everything you have mentioned is very accurate to the experiences that I had. For instance, many years ago, we used to have clients. I used to work for this translation company that all provided services in the US. And then we had these CAT tools. One of them was called Deja Vu, and Embotrados is a very popular one, and it facilitated the process of the translation request. For example, I'm going to talk about hypothetical clients. Let's say Denver Health, which is a clinic, they requested a translation of, let's say, a handbook or I don't know, a medical procedure, and that document has, let's say, 50 pages, 60 pages, and in the industry, we work by the word count, not the pages, as we do in Panama. And then what we usually did was we imported the document into the CAT tool. The CAT tool spread the document in two columns, English and Spanish, and with the translation memory, it already pre-translated the information. And the linguist only had to compare during the editing phase the segments uh, between English and Spanish to make sure the information was translated accurately. The important thing here is that using that translation memory or that license provided me with consistency. Let's imagine that Denver Health has the word member in the document, and then I translated the word member as miembro in that document across all their requests. But then I also had another client, let's say San Francisco Health Plan, and they also had the word member, but they didn't want to use the word miembro in Spanish, but then they used the word afiliado, for instance. So I know that for every client, for consistency matters, I was going to use one specific term. So CAT tools usually help me with that. Um, Also, it helped me determine the word count, the time, the scope that I had to process that translation. So I was able to tell Mr. Client, hey, I will be completing your request in 3 business days, in 10 business days, depending on the length of the document. And this CAT tool really facilitated the process. For personal use, some of them you can buy licenses, you can install them in your computer, and it helps you expedite the work. So I can tell you from experience that the use of CAT tools really help you with the turnaround time. It helps you with the translation memory for consistency matters, for instance, for you and for your specific client. Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. That personal testimony. So yeah, they do help. You know, it's not like a fast and easy solution because there's work anyway. Work is involved always. But yes, you can accomplish a lot more in a shorter time period, and above all, the quality is impacted because as uh, our professor Guerra is saying here, we have to definitely think about consistency and quality, right? We cannot, um, you know, make up things and change things and have different versions of the same document. So that's not the way these things work. Thank you very much. Okay, very good. So, okay, here, look, I should say this topic, I think probably is in high demand. Probably some people would be interested, but I should say this is a separate seminar. This is a separate seminar, a separate program. This is another thing, because if we get into at least 3 of these 5 tools that we mentioned here, that'll take up a complete seminar, maybe more than that, maybe more than 40 hours, a lot more. So yeah, uh, translation is and I know at APTI, they have facilitated some of these seminars that are more practical, but you have to pay a lot more than what we pay here. Okay, so that's the thing. Qualifications. Okay, what matters for a translator is um the knowledge, of course, but there's some recommended education. And here we have for someone who's involved in legal, what they could have, right, uh, under their belt. Bachelor's degree in translation, a bachelor's degree in languages, maybe a law degree, which could be highly valued, some translation certificate, and master's translation optional but beneficial, and they're all offered either at the locally, and if you go into social networks, you're going to find that a lot of that is are being offered. I've been seeing some institute in Mexico. I think it's Esti. That's one of those that is offering always translation certificates. Very few institutions in Latin America will focus into this. Probably Mexico is one of the few, I think, because it's such a big country, as you all know, with this immense population that is going across the border uh, with the United States. So yeah, they do have some of these shorter versions, some updated. I've seen that they offer all of that. So if you're ever curious about this, check it out, and maybe you'll be surprised because some of this a lot of this is offered in English fully, not a Spanish version, but you can get that probably from the Mexicans through them. I've seen several interesting translation certificates and offered, and they're not that expensive either. And other than that, I know our department, English department, is was interested in developing some bachelor's degree in translation. I don't know if that has evolved much. The master's in translation is still open. Uh, uh, there's some limitations to that, okay, but it is still active, right? And well, all of them are required. And above all, the translation license is, I think, what matters the most for our context. I should say it's not listed here because that's not education. It's just that's a license that you obtain after you take two tests. Uh, but that's the way it is. I've seen Maduka is now offering some training or I don't know, maybe orientation. I've seen that in the networks for those who aspire to become translators. Okay, now at present, I don't know how that is going very well over there. It's Meduca is really going in through some rough times. So I don't know how they're dealing with all of these other things. Yeah? So it's enough for me to mention that those things exist, and if you're interested, you could look for that. If you're ever interested in obtaining your license, you're gonna do it through them, through Meduca. Okay, professional certifications that could qualify someone to, if you're ever interested in venturing into legal services in translation, depending on your target market, of course, there's several. Okay, many people don't go for a master's or don't go for anything, a little bit higher than just a certificate. Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this is good to mention here. Now, coming from our background and getting involved into this could be a very important piece of information here. Okay, it is an advantage um, for someone who becomes qualified or competitive, concerning these points that I'm presenting here, because of the nature of the legal projects that you could be involved in, right? You have immigration, business, international transactions, all this. What you need is native proficiency, ideally C1, C2, excellent formal written Spanish, okay, U.S. legal terminology, okay, especially if you plan to work with immigration firms, courts, or multinational companies. Become familiar with legal systems in your home country and target jurisdiction. So essentially, this is like a very healthy rundown of what you may need. Now, any final thoughts on what you need as a legal translator, or what legal translation involved. I'd like to know if you um, would like to add something based on your experience, because we don't assume you don't know anything on this. Of course, we are bringing back, many topics that you have already seen before. We understand that perfectly. So your experience, your personal testimonies are very much welcome and useful to enrich this seminar. So if you have an opinion, this is the moment for you to say something concerning this.
Hi, good morning, Professor Cardenas and everybody else. I would like to just express my opinion about this specific question. I think that, like, when we see translation, and probably from the point of view of the client, or sometimes the point of view of the student who is studying or majoring in English and is taking the subject related to translation, or probably these other courses about business and legal English and other similar courses, they may see translation based on one, just the techniques, that we have seen before, like addition or modulation and things like that, or two, just the use of AI and just getting whatever AI is translated. But if we look at the actual complexity of translation, we can see that there is a lot more than just simply just being aware of the different techniques, or even just letting the AI translate things for you. So I think it's an entire world that deserves time and dedication, not only for those that are like or are willing to be translators, but also for those of us who are teaching students majoring in English these different courses, for them to understand that their professional knowledge and skills should go beyond just simply using AI, because that's something that anybody can do. Like, if I would be a person who has absolutely nothing to do with this career and I want to translate something, instead of hiring somebody, I could just go myself, use any of the AI available, and they're all free and they'll translate. But as professionals, we should offer a more complete service. And that requires a person to be properly trained and with the necessary skills to do this. So, being aware of the different CAT tools or all these different theories that you've been talking about is absolutely necessary. And I think that that's part of our job as professors in the University of Panama, to create that awareness to our students, at least, that this is something that just goes beyond just asking the AI to do the job for you. So I think that this is a very interesting certificate program, and I appreciate all your efforts for everything you've been sharing with us. And we're taking a lot after we complete this program this week. So congratulations for that as well.
All right. So, okay. So the bottom line issue here is this: we need to become competent in the field. Uh, there will always come something better or new, because there are people developing things every day, and who knows what's going to be useful in the future. We don't know, so we have to be open to learning. Above all, that's what I'd like to become a takeaway here, that we need to remain curious. Okay, keep that curiosity about learning, and not avoid that feeling that this is foreign to me, or this is beside the question for me. It is not, because nobody else is going to translate for anybody. And of course, I do agree with that. Some people may tend to go ahead and have some AI do the work, do some work for them. But the problem begins when someone has to take responsibility for that work. When you need to put a seal stamp on signature, and something is legally binding, then AI is not going to save anybody from following the necessary channels and steps. And that is where the professional in translation will always have a niche or a role to play, because there's some things that a human being needs to take care of. That's why I brought in the case of the notary, because that's one of those instances. The volume of work is huge always in legal translation. That is why whenever we speak about translating, we need to refer to translation from a legal perspective, because this is one of the most common types of work that a professional is going to be doing. You have to be open to this. I know that we began talking about a Black legend and the intentions behind translation and all that, but sooner or later, everything we do in translation is going to, boil down to what is legal and what is illegal, or what is in the law, because that is how countries relate. As you can see here, immigration, business, international transactions, these are, the most common types of points of contact among the different cultures and the different languages. And that is why everything that is legal matters very much, and it will always be a recurring topic. Okay? Some people resent a bit, like, oh, why translation again, and um, why does it what makes it so relevant? What makes it relevant is exactly what I'm presenting here. That many of the projects that people will, assist in will involve immigration, either you migrating there or someone migrating from there over here, business of any sorts. Now we have business that is physical and non-physical, virtual, online, and the volume is huge. Okay, of course, um, there will be also transactions going internationally. All of that is part of everyday life. So, and everyday life requires us to eh, function under the laws of the jurisdictions. And that is why legal translation matters so much. Okay, very good. So I'm moving on into something else. Oh yeah, I wanted to bring this in. And the reason for this is because some people, they just don't see the importance of investing money in buying resources or paying for some certificate programs, either here, or internationally, because you could obtain those, of course, at your risk. By that I mean, if, for example, you're going to be perusing or evaluating, taking one of those programs offered by ESTI, for example, in Mexico, you will discover over there that you need to find out if those are legal in our country, if you are going to be living in Panama. But this is the student's responsibility to find out this information. Okay, you need to know about it. You need to do research on this. But there are careers that you could, get yourselves into by learning certain things. And here are, I have listed some of these, right? Not only becoming a certified or sworn translator. Here in our country, we're not sworn, but we're just evaluated and issued a license. So you become certified. Requirements in Panama will make you certified. And all the things you could do internationally, because now you're not bound just by local jurisdiction or work demands. You could work internationally also. And there are all the things that people do. They're not only freelancers, but they're translation agency specialists, court translators, immigration document translators, corporate or law firm translators, international organization translators, government contractors. Okay, there are different things to do, and they're all means and ways for you to accomplish your task of becoming a professional, either part-time, full-time, or whichever you feel is worth doing. And well, here is at least some ballpark salary figures, salary or income figures, right? There is money, and specialization matters. As you see here, any experienced specialists or highly specialized legal translators working with a law firm or multinational organizations, those are the ones who earn substantially more because of what they know, but above all, because of their experience. Essentially, that's what I'd like to say. In translation, more than in other fields, your experience matters a lot. And here is what people make. So very low entry level freelancing is like now $20 a page, but that's just like the very basic at the bottom of the pyramid, because there is a lot more concerning this. Okay, I'm going to give you now a bit of a test. Okay, that I would like you to, just to, make sure we have some essential knowledge. Unfortunately, we have a situation here. The situation is that we are facing here 9:52. It's 9:52. I'd like to give you some work to do, and I don't know if in 8 minutes we'll be able to do it. So my question is, would it be possible for us to take a brief break and then get into this when we come back? Professor Marisol Ortega or whoever is in charge, of Professor Bishop?
Okay. Yes, it is possible. Remember what Professor Marisol said, that it's on you. You decide how this should be run. So if you want to take a break now, that would be perfectly okay. We would be reconvening in about 10 or 15 minutes. What would you suggest? What would you prefer?
Yeah, I would recommend us to come back in if possible in 15. It's
Okay.
if it is 9:53, when will it be the right time to come back?
Okay, we're looking at 10 after 10. Would that
Okay,
work for
wonderful.
you? And then we can all work on the task that you have, once we have our coffees and freshen up a little bit. So would that
All
work
right,
for you?
wonderful. Very good. All right. Yeah,
All right.
that's fine with me. Wonderful.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So we will stop right now. We'll have a short break, 15-minute break, and we'll reconvene at 10 after 10. Enjoy your break.
Thanks. Have a good. All right, guys. So, okay. I have a practice. Let me just go back to sharing. Allow me a second. Okay. It's visible, right? Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, we're going to be doing an exercise here that will require us to display our knowledge on legal terminology. Okay. First of all, okay, I would like very much that you attempt to solve these. Getting these solved shows that you have some basic working knowledge of at least some essentials of legal terminology. So allow yourselves a couple of minutes to think through without checking any resource and see if you could translate this into, in this case, into Spanish. All right, let's go. Whoever feels like contributing, you just go ahead and help us out solve this challenge.
Okay, well, I like to try number one. Affidavit says declaración jurada.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we know affidavit, it's a declaración jurada. I'm sure it's a new term
It is.
for some people, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm sure about it.
It says
Okay,
that it's a
Mhm.
written statement. It's a written statement made under oath.
Very good. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and in many instances, it's also known as an affidavit of support. Okay, an affidavit of support. Okay, which is to state events or information under oath, as you mentioned. So it's a written testimony of someone, who's delivering some factual information, facts, right? Under oath, exactly. So it's legally binding. What goes in an affidavit is legally binding. Very good. Okay, number 2. Thank you very much, Professor. Breach of contract.
I'll go for that one. That's incumplimiento de contrato.
Very good. Could you say something about it? What exactly it is?
Yes, when you have the contract, regardless of what type of contract it is, there are responsibilities and certain aspects that are written in clauses that every party has to actually follow. And once you do not follow any of the agreements that you have in any of the clauses, then it means that you did not fulfill the contract as expected and as you agree with the other party. So when you either omit an action or do something that is established in the contract that you were not supposed to do, or that you were supposed to do and you didn't do it, then that means that there was a breach in the contract. You breached the contract.
Very good. And of course, that carries some penalization and so forth. Exactly.
Yes, normally the contract may have clauses at the bottom also that may offer some possible remedies, which is I think the legal term too, some possible remedies about how to solve the situation in the case of any other parties not fulfilling the contract and breaching it.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. So how about number 3, power of attorney?
Can I poder notarial o poder legal?
Okay. And can you say something about it?
Yeah, for sure. So in that way, it's used as a legal document that authorizes one person to act on behalf of another, or in legal or personal matters. So, and come from the law of agency as well.
Exactly. It's more than anything, it's authorization. Also very legally binding as well, just like any other legal documents. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What about plaintiff?
That would be demandante, plaintiff. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure, loud and
Yeah.
clear.
That's the party that initiates a lawsuit or maybe a complaint.
Yeah.
He files a complaint.
Yeah,
Mhm.
very good. Yeah, and I should also add here, in any lawsuit, right? That's the action. That's the party. That's now there are certain things that it's important to bear in mind. It's the claimant, is the plaintiff, also the pursuer, right, or the complainant. Okay, those are possible names used in different jurisdictions. Thank you very much. What about defendant? Thank you. Defendant, please.
El acusado
Okay. Could you say something about this role?
is like if I take someone to court and I'm accusing the person of, well, taking my car, is the acusado, is the
Mm-hmm.
defendant.
Mm-hmm.
Am
Okay,
I right?
so yeah, a
Mm.
defendant is the sued party, right? The
Okay,
sued
sue party.
party.
Not away. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. What about the next one? Settlement agreement. Settlement agreement.
That would be a acuerdo de conciliación o transaccional.
Pardon? Could you say that
Acuerdo
again?
yes, acuerdo de conciliación.
Very good. Very good.
It's
Exactly. And that goes without saying, very clear, right?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Some agreement, exactly. The compensación, whatever. Very
Yes,
good, very
without going
good.
to trial. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's an agreement without going
Thank
to
you.
trial. Yeah.
Thank you very much. What about a court order?
That's an orden judicial.
Part, yeah, very good, exactly. And could you say something about it? Do you know anything about it? Remember, the term is as important as the legal system, as the way it is used in the legal system. That is why I'm asking you about this. What is a court order used for?
This is an official directive issued by a court or judge.
Okay.
Yeah, it is used to refrain someone from doing something.
Okay, very good, very good.
I think it also like overrules any rules that a place has. It goes like over the rules from maybe a establishment. It goes over it. For example, if in Contraloria they have like they cannot discount or do these things, but if there's a court order, it goes over whatever rules that an establishment has. That's what I understand.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Exactly. Very good. It's a compelling directive. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Um, Anybody else on notary public?
Yes, notary is a public, sería notario público. It's a public official, right? Authorized by the government. To most of that, like certified documents, also entity signatures. So witness signatures too.
Thank you very much. Exactly. So, pretty much at the level of a judge in some instances, in some of them. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. What about witness? Witness and will.
Testigo, witness, testigo.
All right, wonderful. Very good. Yeah, witness. Very good. And what about will?
Testamento.
Testamento.
That is correct. That is correct. Very good. That is correct. Okay. Very good. Okay. So, all right. These are like very basic terminology. None of them are extremely technical, but here I have some other questions that I would like you to reflect on, okay? Why is this? Not because we're doing busy, keeping you busy or anything. No, this is the purpose. The purpose on this module is to gain this awareness that terminology and system or legal system are both very important, but above all, the way things work in a legal system matter more than the terminology used. So I would definitely like very much you to try or attempt this in the coming 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, we're going to start discussing this topic. So use your smartphones or with whatever you have handy that can help you out with this. Thank you. So now it's time for us to carry on our discussion. Who could enlighten us concerning lawsuit and claim, please? The differences, similarities, or relationship between a lawsuit and a claim. Anybody who could provide some input concerning this number one. Very first one, bonus question. Thank you.
Okay, what I understood, having done a little bit of research, is that a claim is la demanda, but like the first step, it's like much more informal and can be filed out in court or outside. And on the other hand, when we talk about lawsuit, it's just es una demanda judicial, and it's when you take the claim to court. So it's like we couldn't solve it, so we now a judge will decide. That's what of course, it's more serious and expensive, and it's always lived on court. That's what I have to contribute.
Well, thank you very much, Katia. So yeah, so which one would go first?
And the first step is the claim.
The claim, right? And what translation
Also,
would you give to claim?
Reclamación.
Okay, very good, exactly.
Mhm.
And for lawsuit?
Sorry, Professor?
For
didn't
lawsuit,
hear you.
you said reclamo judicial, right? Or
Demanda,
demanda
o
judicial.
proceso. Demanda judicial.
Thank you very much. Okay, very good. So I hope the concepts are clear, because sometimes when you see these within text, this could be pretty misleading, and you don't know if you don't have a clear understanding of which one goes first, which one goes second, the level of someone's request or you know, it will vary, right? The intensity is different and the procedure is different. Very good. Consideration. Now, the question here is, why is consideration in contract law difficult to translate into Spanish? The question is not what the meaning of consideration is, because I think in general we could leave it as such, or there could be, I think the cognate could work like la consideración, se considera, right? That could be left out. But the thing is, why is it difficult to translate? That's the reasoning I'd like you to try to provide or share here with us, please.
I would like to say something about the concept of consideration. In terms of contracts, for example, the concept more than the actual word consideration normally refers to like the responsibilities of what each party signing the contract are committing themselves to. So, for example, if I'm gonna provide a service, let's say that I have a business and I provide a translation service. So when you create a contract with your client, among the different parts of a contract, there's one section or one aspect, I would say, that must consider or must include the considerations, which is like, what is it that I am offering? What is my contribution, or what is it that I am giving the other party, or what I'm committing myself to in this contract? For example, providing I don't know, an accurate translation of a certain document. Probably I'm committing myself also to providing the final document in a certain format or in a specific way, or probably for a specific deadline, things like that. And then in the consideration of the other party is like the amount of money that the person is going to pay, also the way that the payment is going to be done, and probably like what could happen or what could be an overcharge if the person does not meet the deadline for the payments, or the different system in which it's going to pay. So to my understanding, the concept more than the word consideration may vary. That's why it may be a little bit difficult to really like provide a specific definition of it, because the consideration will be different depending on the contract, depending on the legal document. So it might not necessarily be one specific thing, but it may like have a different connotation depending on what the contract is about or what the legal document is about. That's like what I understand from the concept of consideration.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Exactly. When you don't have anything solid to offer, then these offerings, they're pretty much they're floating in the air, because you're not, there is no deed guaranteeing that anything is being offered in return or compensation. So it's a very difficult concept to deal with. And this is something that no software can get you out of. You will have to reason what is exactly the intention behind the document, so that you uh, would have to probably interpret a bit if you are translating these into Spanish, where we don't have a very clear concept of what is consideration. So consideration is part of negotiation, but it's not anything concrete yet. It's just something being offered, or some referential offering. So it's very difficult. There isn't exactly an equivalence. You could say this will fully explain what I'm trying to communicate here. So that's challenging. That's very challenging. And who's gonna get you out of that? Probably using resources, documents, previous documents above all, because if you've had that before, you will chances are you will run into that very same situation, difficult tight spot of translating something that does not exist in your target language, in this case Spanish. So that is why portals like word reference are very useful, because right there you're going to have all the discussion threads by the different translators across Latin America talking about the same. Even in the United States, people are always discussing some of this. So if you go into word reference, you're going to run into the aspect of consideration that you're going to read lots of it, because everybody is always having a hard time translating such a word, or such concept, difficult concept. So yeah, I strongly recommend word reference for these ones. It's especially one of those that deserve a special thread. It's like a special discussion forum just for the use of consideration, for the translation of consideration into Spanish. Word reference, word reference. Very good. What would be a translation for equity? And could you explain its meaning?
Equidad.
Yeah, that'll be one of those. But there are quite others that I think are a lot more precise than the equidad. So,
Actually, equity takes meaning according to context.
okay, Could you
So
provide at least?
would be the ratio de equidad. If you're talking about moral fairness, then that's equidad. If you're talking about finance, that could be patrimonio neto.
Okay.
If you're talking about social policy, that's like something like fair access, like could be equidad social. So it really takes meaning according to context. So this term is a little bit
Yeah.
difficult.
It's
Yeah.
slippery term. That's what I
Yeah.
call that.
Yeah, you have to make sure, I mean, in what context you're using it.
Mhm. Any other opinion concerning equity?
They say that it's a branch of the law part. It's part of the law, and depends how we want to look at. We're talking about law. It can be like equity in, let's say, in the business part or in the company, but it's a branch of law in this case.
Yeah, what will be a Spanish translation for that, please, Belgica?
As I say before, equidad, igualdad.
Okay.
Equal
None of
part.
you have said patrimonio.
Yeah, I would like to say something. It just there. I don't know. You have ever seen Shark Tank? If you see that TV show where you see like all these people with ideas for businesses and they have their startups and things like that, you see that most of the time when they look for these people that are the sharks and for them to put some money and invest in their businesses, they also offer not only a percent, but they also offer like equity, like a certain part of their company for that, and they look for that. So that's the first time which I heard the actual concept equity. So like, and that's probably something very interesting to share with our students when we teach legal and business English, because it has a lot to do with that. So it will be patrimonio, like from that point of view, and actually like patrimonio about the acciones. So it might be related to the ownership of the value of the actual company. So that's a very interesting concept right there.
Right, very interesting. So yeah, as they always mention, so that shareholders' equity and so forth. Exactly, that's more of money. That is baseline money for some kind of business venture. So yeah, it is slippery and fishy because it's difficult to pin the term which is appropriate according to the context. So yeah, and will a software tell you the answer? I really don't think so. You'll have to check out and confirm on your own. And this is the translator's challenge. Very good. So my question is, um, do you think it is worth the effort of translating legal documents, or should we just ignore it altogether? What do you think about it? So what I mean is this topic relevant to you? Do you think this is relevant? Why am I asking this? I'm asking you this because look, every time we invest time, effort, money, and our minds into something, it's because this should have some relevance. The relevance factor uh, impacts very much our motivation. And well, there are very few professionals in our field interested in this niche topic. Do you think this is relevant or not? What do you think? We don't have as many conference interpreters and translators of legal matters. Not even our colleagues who are lawyers, they're full-time translators, um, um, publishing books or publishing news, journal articles, or publishing research into legal matters concerning English and Spanish translation, back and forth between the two languages. Not even the niche of a conference interpretation. We don't have anybody going after any interpretation degrees at present anywhere in the world. What do you think? Why do you think that is? What's going on?
Well, I think that because of the development of technology nowadays, in which not only they have been addressing the use of language, generating language, as we see, for example, for most AI, they are also working on artificial intelligence, not only to translate documents or handle language or generate language, but they have also I'll wait. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. What you just said is just right. And it's not only because of technology. I think everybody takes translation and interpretation for granted. Okay, listen to the words I'm using. Panamanian professionals, okay, in general, they take translation for granted. Okay, if you talk to doctors, medical doctors, that's what I mean, or engineers or whoever, they will tell you that they know enough English for them to get by. However, they need to become updated every year as part of their professional activity, depending on what kind of organization they're working for, especially if they're working for larger ones or internationally tied ones or based, they will need certification of their, updating, just like what we're doing right now. The problem is that many of them, they are looking at local, regional certifications, but they're not going uh, into larger, scope, like United States, Europe sort of markets. And people don't take much from that because they say it's too advanced, maybe it's too expensive, it's too much English. And well, if I have to do it, they have to provide the interpretation for me, or they have to provide the translation for me, because I don't have to study that language for me to know. And the reality is that um, if you know a second language well, um, you should be able competent in a second language, but many of them are not. Many of them are not, and they take translation for granted. They think things are going to be translated and interpreted for them for free, and that they don't need to learn languages because this is something that you do when you're young. This is not something that you do when you are middle-aged or elderly. This is a big mistake because this is arrogance. That's the way I see it. Once I got the chance to be involved with a group, and these people had to take some seminars offered in English, and they expected somebody to interpret and translate everything for them as part of their offering, of the program. That could be available, but that's not always the case. The case is that over there, they assume that you are competent enough to understand and study in a foreign language. You could be very well studying in French or in English or in Portuguese, being in Latin America. They assume that. But if you cannot handle that, then they will not translate or interpret anything for you, regardless of the fact that you're already paying for tuition or whatever it is, or fees or whatever. You're not supposed to be offered translation and interpretation because you're competent. Because as a professional, maybe you're very competent. That's what you're saying. People here tend to assume that someone's going to interpret and translate for them. That's the mistake they make. And why does legal translation matter? It matters so much because this involves people's rights, your rights, and understanding of your rights, and understanding of procedure and all that. And if someone will depend completely on someone else to tell them what to do or how to do things, this is not going very far. You may need a translator for some official things, but your understanding of the topic is very necessary. And I think that's where there professionals in Panama and in many places, because it's not only here. My criticism is local because I know that there is a prevailing mindset concerning languages, that this is something for children, that young adults, they need to learn languages, but then the elderly professionals, they're established, so they don't need languages anymore, but they're making mistakes. And making mistakes because they don't understand what's really going on, because they don't read, they don't even want to read the instructions for anything. So this is serious. This is a serious thing. So yeah, it's a prevailing mindset that's pervasive and perverse, also perverse, because you cannot demand other people things that you're not willing to accomplish. And this is part of the challenge. Okay, so here we have some not correction, but an offering of a rundown and review of the translations that you offered. And okay, it should be avoided notario público, I think. And this is something that I decided to include here because notario is the standard legal title in most of the jurisdictions. Okay. Okay. And also for settlement agreement, there's also acuerdo transaccional, acuerdo de conciliación. Those are part of what normally transpires in legal offices among different parties, involved. Okay. A little bit of discussion here that I like to, follow up a bit here with you. So lawsuit generally refers to the entire judicial proceeding, okay? That's lawsuit, okay? Demanda o proceso judicial, whereas claim often refers to legal assertion or cause of action, reclamación, pretensión, okay? It's very important to establish the difference between those two. These are troublesome terms, not because we are unable to learn this. The problem is that legal writing or legalese is cumbersome. It's all packed and going back and forth and full of stock phrases, and oftentimes you're gonna get words that are possibly interchangeable, and these are two of those pairs that will constantly create some uncertainty for someone who's reading either in English or in Spanish, because you'll have to be very careful when you read, and you make sure you have consistency above all, exactly, in terms of how you're dealing with these different terms. Consideration has no exact equivalent in most civil law systems, okay? Because it is a concept unique to common law, okay? So the common law. It is often left untranslated with an explanatory note or translated descriptively, depending on the purpose of the translation. So what I'm showing you here is a recurring problem in most legal translation modules of legal translation programs that people study in the world. So these are recurring problems. In the Spanish-English pair legal matters considered as consideration. We cannot even say consideración and leave it at that, because maybe a footnote is required as to provide some, additional information. Equity may mean equidad in a general sense, but in common law, it can also refer to body of law developed by courts of equity, which has no direct counterpart in many Latin American legal systems. So translators must determine the intended legal meaning from the context rather than relying on a single equivalent. So here, as it appeared before, that it depends on context. Translators, depending on their expertise, they will probably provide something that could get them off the hook, because this is kind of a hook here. Very shifty sense, slippery terminology, legalese that could, give you a headache. In sum, a roadmap for translator from Latin America. Once more, we need to build English proficiency that is high, advanced, strengthen advanced Spanish writing skills also, learn the fundamentals of laws, especially contract, civil procedure, corporate law, and immigration. Essential, especially contracts. Master legal terminology in both English and Spanish. A tall order, but not impossible. But that requires someone who is passionate about this, or someone who is a lawyer, already is a lawyer, that could do it also in the other language. Learn the CAT tools, Stratos or MemoQ, as to make their work, better. Build a portfolio with simple translation, volunteer, or internship work. All of that matters very much, because it shows you're competent, right? Consider recognized certification, okay, such as ATA, if you plan to work in the U.S. market or with the U.S. market. Network with translation associations and legal professionals, and choose one specialty rather than trying to translate every type of legal document. This is something that is highly recommended also. Books, sources of information concerning the topic will tell you that you need to pick one area of expertise, and then you should follow through. This is the most advisable thing to do. So you're going to go into real estate, then you should try to specialize in everything concerning real estate, and become very good at dealing with all the legal terminology involving real estate, for example. Do everything that has to do with the law, network with associations, local associations, and someone who is a strong bilingual translator, and with good understanding and expertise, is more competitive than a generalist. Okay, this is very important. Okay, so all this is useful because there is work. Okay, so many people complain that there isn't work. There is work, but the problem is that we don't have the qualified professionals, or we do not probably fulfill the roles required for that task, and this is not good. So if you want a roadmap about how to become a little bit more competent, so that you will get yourselves into some projects that could render some side source of income, it's important that you consider the following points. Because look, we don't come just here to speak about empty theory. all of this theory we're speaking about translation relates to the real world and real life matters, and money is part of real life. So many people don't see this as a possible or potential source of income, but it's always been there and it's not going anywhere. That it doesn't come to you doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Probably goes above our head, and we are not fully profiting from what we could, probably be participating in. Okay. We need to talk now a little bit about, a real headache in a translation, which is cognates. Okay. Cognates. We're going to switch, completely to a different topic right now. Why is it that we need to keep coming back to cognates? Cognates are extremely, that's part of what we were saying about equity, for example, or consideration. Okay. Those are terms that we tend to assume we have the meaning. We know that, but we really just can't use them effectively without making a mistake, especially depending on the field we're in. So this is always worth the effort of taking time to look at them. We have different kinds of cognates, okay? We have false cognates, we have partial cognates that we need to be careful about. Why is that? Because they orthographically look the same, but semantically they differ. And we also have partial false cognates, which have to be very careful, because then semantically they're similar, and orthographically they could be exactly alike. And then there is a difference anyway. There's a difference anyway that should be considered. So this PFC labeled should be specially considered. So we have formal, right? Okay. Partial false cognate for reliable, trustworthy, but that's not complete, right? It's not ceremonious or formal dress. Instead, we should use ceremonioso de etiqueta if we are referring to appearance or clothing or presentation, etc., at a given, event or, gathering, so to speak. So formal is a partial false cognate. It's not a full cognate, and it's not a false cognate either. For reliable, trustworthy. Okay, trustworthy and reliable also mean other things other than formal. Okay, so that's what we mean over here. I don't dare even to request from you some example here, because this is of course going to contribute to the ambiguity. Okay, so what we need to do here is highlight that some of these terms resemble some similarity. They resemble to some extent one with the other in the two languages, but they don't fully mean 100%. Reliable stands for formal, or 100% trustworthy relies for, means fully formal. Okay, so let's be very careful here. For example, we have a false cognate case over here. Okay, underneath that came repeated. Sorry about that. We have gabinete, partial false cognate, only for a body of ministers or advisors, right? Only for that. It's a false cognate, because that doesn't necessarily only mean gabinete in that sense. Unlike, for example, cabinet as a piece of furniture. Okay, and we're going to be using that and say cabinet is the piece of furniture. Instead of that, the proper term in Spanish should be vitrina, or more precise, for more precision, gabinete. So partial false cognate for a body of ministers, or advisors. Gentilmente, we may assume it's gently. Here, sources are telling us that's a false cognate. They do not equal each other, or they are not equivalent. What we instead should, of course, consider is that gently is more like suavemente o cuidadosamente, charmingly or kindly are much more appropriate than gentilmente. So this is something that should be considered. So gentilmente is not gently. Instead, suavemente or cuidadosamente are a lot more appropriate or better renderings. Gracia, we have partial false cognate here. Grace, but it's also, as you all know, more like joke or funny in everyday language. Juan es muy gracioso. That's difference, right? That's a different thing. You have Granada as a partial false cognate, explosive projectile, and the country Grenada, right? But also pomegranate as a fruit, okay? So we may not say that Granada is only a piece of artillery or weaponry, right? Explosive weaponry. We couldn't say that. So it's also a country name or very similar to a country name version. In Spanish, we say Granada, I think it's the country, and Grenada in English. Pomegranate as a fruit, okay? It's equivalent probably with Granada, but not the weaponry as fully a cognate, right? Gratificar is a partial false cognate to tip or compensate. Partial because it's not fully captured in terms of meaning over there. Gratificar doesn't mean gratify, because gratify is more like dar placer, dar satisfacción. That's a different, that's completely different, okay? It's more like compensar, okay? That's like to pay maybe, I don't know, tip or something, okay? To tip, not gratify. So if you use one, as equivalent of the other, there's going to be a problem here, and it's important to deal with that ambiguity. Look at this, for example, false cognate, groseria for grocery store, completely different. Probably for us, it's not that bad because of our level of English, but someone with a lower level could assume groseria is a grocery or grocery store. That's a serious mistake, as you know, because tienda is the much more appropriate term. That equals, however, coarse, boorish, or crude act, or or comment, and so forth. Armonizar, armonizar is a partial false cognate for create harmony. That could also be to coordinate, bring into phase, or synchronize. And in the case of higher education, this word is used a lot. I've seen it, especially in European Union documents. Let's say harmonization, generally used as homologación, and that's perfectly equivalent one with the other. It doesn't appear here because it's not something that belongs to very general, but in more specific terms, especially in education, there's an armonización curricular, okay? That's pretty much like homologación, harmonization of a curriculum. It's more like doing that process of dealing with the analysis of curriculum content. It's something else. Homologación curricular. Okay. Another important topic here for us that it's always it's a golden nugget that we need to add to our presentations is dealing with proverbs and idiomatic expressions. And always good to keep a stock of all of them. They will ease a lot communication, and as they're stock phrases. They're part of language that goes as formulas in communication, regardless of the register. Very high register, low register, you need proverbs and idiomatic expressions. they belong more to especially idioms, to the spoken realm. But remember, a translator should also be an interpreter. Okay, so if you interpret, then you need a good and solid background on what to say that is appropriate, right? So we have between a rock and a hard place, entre la espada y la pared, and they're very different versions of the same saying that could impact what we normally do. We have esforzarse por, many people always say to do an effort or to make an effort, which is, of course, as you know, a mistake, right? Because what should be said is more like to do the effort, do instead of make. That's one of those troublesome spots in language learning. But even more of a more precise nature is to strive for, okay? A little bit higher in register, to strive for something, which does not mean to struggle. It's more like to strive for, it's like work. Este arroz ya se coció. Take a look. It's in the bag, okay? Something's in the bag. That's a way of putting that something has been accomplished. A goal has been accomplished. Something has been done. Estar a punto de, to be about to be about to. Look at to be nuts, okay? Referring to estar chiflado, so it's out of your mind. Someone's out of their mind. It's nuts. It's a good thing to remember this. To be in agreement with, not to agree with or agree to, no, it's like to be in agreement with someone. So estar de acuerdo, I think it's pretty legal. Estar de luto, it's to be in mourning, to be in mourning. Okay, very good. Okay, I don't dare to request, for you to produce sentences using them because this does not contribute. But as I was saying before, it's like a golden 2-cent contribution or golden nugget that you bring in this translation repertoire that needs to be enriched, okay? To be enriched. We cannot study these topics, cognates and proverbs and sayings and idiomatic expressions. We cannot study them because there isn't a methodology that can help us really learn this. Personally, I come to realize that we all need all of these, but generally they will come out of experience, not from learning from a book that is going to teach you that. There is no way you can concretely study cognates and say, I'm going to study from this list of cognates and I'm going to learn. No, as you use them, you will progress and we will gain experience. And this is burdensome, okay, burdensome. And that's why the entry level at many programs generally has high expectations from participants. And some people, they just don't feel like they fit the bill. Like they're not good enough for the starting level for any program because you need to come with a very solid background in cognates and idiomatic expressions and cultural information concerning proverbs and sayings. And this is out of your experience. This is out of your experience. Is there anything we can do about this? There isn't much we can do about this because a lot of this is experience essentially and your personal quest for achieving the necessary level of competence in the language. Okay, so yeah, what is behind being a very competent writer is this information, this background information. What is behind being a very competent speaker for C1, C2 profile? It's, as you know, all of this cultural information, proverbs, and so forth. So yeah, and this is what we don't always enjoy. Now, the last topic of the day is going to be translation in the 17th and 18th centuries. which is also listed in the topics for our seminar certificate. I will refer to this, and I know that probably this is a little bit slower than what we've seen before. We started talking yesterday about the Black legend, and the Black legend had to do with an aspect of translation that tends to be disregarded, which is people's impressions, prejudices, and stereotypes derived from some misconceptions about intentions that translators could have, not being very factual, not being very objective, being more subjective than anything. This is an aspect of translation that tends to be overlooked. But then there is also this other factual, solid aspect based or grounded in reality, which is, for example, legal translation as the largest probably field of the subject matter of translation, because of its implications, because of how it impacts everybody's lives. Either we like it or not, we're subject to the rules. We live and we have to abide by the rules. We live under the rules and protected by the rules of the country, of the land, the rules, the laws, but we also have to abide by the law. We are subject to both responsibilities and rights, and all those derive from the law of the country, that we don't see it right in front of our eyes, but that is written somewhere and it has to do with our rights and our responsibilities. So translating this type of information, now considering once more and following the same line of thought that I began developing yesterday, that a lot of our exchange with a English-speaking culture has to do with immigration, transactions, relations of the diplomatic nature, all of this that we do at consulates and embassies, or that American people do at our consulates and our embassies, those are, I would call, the points of contact, right? However, now we're going to go back to the history or historic elements of translation that connect with real world matters that we were discussing today. For example, when we took the time to talk over legal matters and legal translation as a field. Now we're coming back to a history of translation a bit, so as to understand some other elements that we have inherited, because what we do now comes from what was thought back then, because it was a problem back then. It was, and it is still a problem that hasn't been solved. What happened during the 17th and 18th centuries? Our countries in the Americas, which is our part of history, where we live in, we were in the process of becoming independent countries, independent nations, but that was incipient, very, very early independent stages. So we inherited an European identity and culture that eventually evolved into an independent identity. But we inherited anyway a culture and a language, and the human group still kept in contact. And as you know, we were not one country, of course, because Latin America is a large region, became fragmented and became different countries eventually. It was originally, as you all know, vice rectories, or what we call them, vice virreinatos. Okay, so vice, I just can't get the word. Well, the King of Spain and Portugal left here for most of the Latin American region these smaller kings, okay? And these people, of course, they all lost their influence and we became fragmented. The US also was something like that, but they eventually unified under a single country. And then they became, but originally, we were not all the same. We were just part of an European flows of migration coming into our continent. You know the history. So this is our inheritance. The major advances, of course, about translation, because this is still the topic of the day. We will not switch to history or sociology. This is about translation and history. During these centuries belong to England. Okay, we will refer to England. And why England? Because for the from England there wasn't only like the most important translations accomplished by British writers, but perhaps more importantly, it concerned themselves with how quality translation could be produced. So they set the standard back then of how translating documents is supposed to be done, and they did it, I think, because of illustration. The printing press also. I think in these European nations such as England, reading was very important, and education, of course, began to gain importance, and that was how a person earned prestige, not only through a noble title. So the nobility, of course, always played an important role, but education would differ, one person from the other, and since they had these illustration values, that it was important to keep a library, to read books, buy books, write books, read books. They became, as you know now, societies of knowledge, right? Societies of knowledge. That's the case of England and many other countries that are more advanced at present. It's because they're society knowledge, or knowledge societies, to say it properly. So they established what the duties of the translator were to both the original writer as well as the reader of the translation. So because of the practical nature of many of the observations made by British translators of the period, they still stand to great value today. And we will get to know a little more about some of these important people such as Steiner. Here we have Steiner's English translation theory of, if I'm not wrong, if it's Steiner's, hold on. Book on English translation theory, 1650 to 1800s. So when I was talking to you about a style guide before, this was a style guide of the past, right? Proper translation had to be performed according to some established standards. So they set the bar for what was supposed to be considered a good translation or translation, professional translation work. That was something that people understood, that the original writer felt respected and valued, and that the audience or readers would feel happy about something they're consuming, that they're reading, people understand it. So that there wasn't this concept that translations were just for the elite. They wanted it for the people so that people knew more. And in the past, during the earlier in other modules, we were talking about the School of Toledo in Spain. There was a lot of scholarly work involved. And the very first School of Translation in Toledo wasn't for the public. That wasn't for the people. That was just for the elite, right? And that involved church authorities, important people in the royalty, some scholars and educators, but not for the vast majority. Now, this is now unlike the School of Toledo that was just for the elites. This is a type of translation going for the commoner, okay? The commoner. Okay. For the commoner, for the common people. They are the ones who definitely sorry about that interruption. Just 1 second here. So, yeah, the thing is, now translation follows style guide. Okay, style guide. Now, of course, back then there wasn't anything like a style guide established as such, but there was at least a book to follow on what to do and how to go ahead and do translation work that is respectful. By the 17th century, the impact of Reformation and Counter-Reformation and a more powerful Parliament in England had run its course, with the important side effects of invigorating British letters and rekindling interest in the classics, and therefore translation. The status of translators was elevated to the point that the best translators were giving a position of quasi-quality to the original writers that were rendering it into English. So being culturally open made these nations important in the world because they began consuming literature for the common people, right? Consuming literature from all over the world and translating it into English for their people to know or learn more. Of course, this sets, the standard and makes a difference between what an advanced country is and what is not. So the ones who know more are going to be the privileged ones, and they little by little worked in this direction. This does not say that they were not fighting the Spaniards or Spain, the empire, the Spanish Empire. But most of the damage was already made, right? And don't think that it was just a fallacy made up by the English. The Spaniards also contributed to their downfall with all that behavior they had and their loss of popularity. Not just to say popularity, but their loss of a moral in present day Latin America. They fell, and they fell because they did, good and bad things. And most of the bad things were under the light of these other European nations that were more illustrated. And the work they did was widely published, and that's how they fell as an empire. It's not something that was only done to them, they did it to themselves also. It's important to keep that in mind. And they did not care much about translation anyhow, because otherwise they would have become the largest publishers of the indigenous literatures that they discovered among the Indian, not Native American Indians, Aztec empires, Incas empires, and so forth, and Mayans. Most of this literature is not widely known among Spanish speakers because the Spanish speakers were more in favor of replacement, cultural replacement, than in regarding and respecting other cultures. Since they were here first, they could have become guardians of all this knowledge, but they disregarded it as probably inferior or immoral, and that prevented us from learning more about our own Americas. Now, adding up to the case that I'm developing here, we read here, bear with me, the most prominent figure in this field in the 17th century was John Dryden, okay? who was not only a major translator, but also an individual who established basic typology of translation. This is important, or classification of translations. Okay, some important phrase terminology was coined through John Dryden. There is a metaphrase, which is the word for word translation, and the paraphrase, sense for sense. Paraphrase is also what we talk about when we deal with language structure and language analysis. And well, all that comes thanks to John Dryden. We also have other terms coined, such as imitation, which the original assumes liberties with both word and sense of the original. Those are coined terms that still exist and still in use, coming from this period. Dryden also acknowledged the basic dilemma of the translator caught between being faithful to the original, yet also intelligible, when he said, "It is possible to translate verbally and well at the same time. 'Tis much like dancing on ropes with fettered legs. A man may shun a fall by using caution, but the graceful dance of motions is not to be expected." So being, a translator means also this, exactly, and he understood it very well. And it's possible to get lost in translation by trying to being faithful to the original and also communicating the message or altering the message for the audience. So it's a serious matter, and he knows translation needs to be professional. Okay, here we have a portrait of John Dryden, right? John Dryden. So his contribution was major during the period. He helped establish coined terms such as imitation. We also have there metaphrase and paraphrase that are still in use in translation and beyond translation. So adding up to this elaboration, I must say that Dryden saw translation in very modern terms as a careful balance between the features which make translation an art, a craft, or a science. Okay, this is an ongoing discussion that has been, revealed through so many books, and everywhere is the same. What is translation? It's an art and a culture. An art and a science. We all still say the same in our classrooms, right? But where is this all coming from? Through contributors such as John Dryden, right? His detailed rules establish some prerequisites for a translator, whom he felt must be a master of both the language of the original and his own. And as he translates, he must understand the characteristics that made the author individual. So it's like having a dialogue with the original writer of any text or piece. Conform his genius as translator to that of the original. That means there must be a full understanding of what the author communicates. Be literal when gracefulness can be maintained. Okay? Preserving this static element is important, but it's not always possible. Make the original author appear as charming as possible without violating his true character. It's important to respect the person, but we have to respect also the intelligence of the reader. Make the original author speak contemporary English. So as you know, sometimes you have your original text writer right next to you, but sometimes it could be a long gone person, right? And if there are centuries or decades or hundreds of years in between the work you're doing as a translator and the original text writer, you have to try to bring the message to present. It doesn't make any sense to write something in a language that people don't appreciate or cannot appreciate or understand. Try not to improve the original. So addition is not good. Omission isn't either. But addition, that's not good. Okay, that's just not good because it means you are not respecting the author and you are, stealing something. Try not to follow the original so closely that the spirit is lost. Okay, this requires balancing out things. So it's a serious intellectual effort if you're going to do things the right way. The 18th century brought a new and useful metaphor for translation. It's important that this becomes a takeaway from this topic. The translator would be like a portrait painter who would use his own materials to present an accurate portrait of reality, which captures the spirit of the original, but not necessarily the exact features. So you should go for the essential without getting so much into detail, because sometimes it's beyond what is required. But nevertheless, his guiding principle should be to catch the spirit and strive for the same impact. In this task, he had equal responsibilities to the original writer, to the reader, and to his own standards. So I think what made Dryden and other translators of the 17th and 18th century relevant was the establishing of standards in translation, because none of that was seen back, for the common people. Because the School of Toledo, which of course was way before, several hundreds of years before, right? Many of them, School of Toledo was in the 1300s, and we're talking about the 1800s, 1700s. This is translation for the people, not translation for the elite. Late in the 18th century, Alexander Fraser Tytler, Lord Woodhousley, 1747-1814, produced a classic work in the field of translation. So this book, I think, is still available. You could still get it online. It's out there. Of course, people read this for scholarly reasons, because this is a shared history of translation work. The name of the book or volume is Essay on the Principles of Translation. Okay? He established simple basic principles, illustrated them exhaustively with examples. What makes it so special is that there was a wide range of languages. And we should capture three essential elements here, fundamental principles. We have one, a translation should give a complete transcript of the ideas of the original work. And it should be as complete and whole and wholesome as possible. Okay? It should be as wholesome as possible. The style and manner, of writing should be of the same character as that of the original. So if there is a specific concrete gender or identifiable gender or topic or way of writing or way of thinking, that should be rendered also in the translation version. Number three, a translation to have all the ease of the original composition, all the information, all the notes, all the side notes, all the clarification, all of that should also be reflected in the translation of a given document. Okay? This is all very important. Okay, here is essays on the principles of translation by Alexander Fraser Tytler, Lord Woodhousley, this gentleman. Okay, the book is out there, still out there, available. Of course, I know not everybody is into history of translation, but this is a major contribution to the field. And since the book is free, maybe you could peruse it a bit and download it and get it. And the advantage of our day is that we have access to all of this information that wasn't available before. So if you're curious, you could, find out about things that we could not, anyway get in the past. I'm talking about 20, 30, 40 years ago. Okay. Very good. So yeah, this is all about translation standards. So let me just do a rundown very quickly here. Very quickly. Translation should give a complete transcript. Okay. Translations need to be complete. So you cannot evade sections because you don't like what you're reading. This is long established. Another important standard in translation: the style and manner of writing should be of the same character as that of the original. Okay, you cannot turn a legal document into a historic document, or turn some historic account into a joke or humorous type of writing, because that's not the idea. You have to try to preserve the genre, the tone, and the style. Translation to have the ease of the original composition. By the ease is organization, structure, clarification, all those important major points. So this is coming from Dryden, that someone who's a translator needs to fulfill these requirements. I'm not going to read them again, but there they are. Okay, there they are. The reason why this appears, because it's something that has been established and it exists. It's not something made up that translators now have to fulfill with certain things. No, it's always been there ever since translation became an important activity. I have a new topic that I need to start covering, which is the theory of translation. A theory of translation topic is going to get us into this time. I think we were talking about addition. We're going to start talking now about omission. Okay, leaving out things is not a good thing to do. Loss of meaning is an ongoing problem in translation. We don't want anything to be lost. So how do we deal with this when this is unavoidable? Okay, so it's a permanent risk. So it's a risky activity in that regard. Someone who has standards in translation is going to be criticizing omissions, also additions. So we need to be aware of this. I will just introduce the topic because time, it's at 11:46 in my clock. And I think this is going to take up more than the remaining 13 to 12 minutes that I am left with. So I will just introduce the topic, and then I'm going to be cutting off because I have some other activities to do here with you that probably we won't have enough time to develop. And that's not the intention behind any of this. So what about omissions? Omissions in translation, like additions, can be inadvertent, or forced by syntactic, semantic, or lexical reasons. So we have to learn to live with it. It's like corruption. Corruption is part of human nature, so to speak. So there isn't much we can do. We have to fight it, but it's going to be there always. Okay. The same with omission, same as with addition. When you translate, you're always at risk of cutting off or adding more. Okay? And this is serious because look, in the book, in the Bible, you'll read at the very end of the Bible that there is a warning. There is a piece of warning. And this is the most serious book in translation work ever. And we discussed this in previous modules in this certificate program. The Bible is the #1 book translators dealt with ever. And it's the core foundational book for our civilization and the modern world, so to speak. Of course, there are other parts of the world, but they are not as important as the Christian world. Not economically, not socially, but probably culturally, but for their own people. But for the rest of the world to work as it is at present, is Christianity. And the core foundational book is the Bible. And the warning in the book of Revelation is this: whoever adds or whoever cuts off is going to be cut off from the blessings and the offerings made in this book. In in fewer or less, more or less, it's pretty much a warning that you cannot add, you cannot cut off, you cannot say whatever you want or what is convenient for you. You have to be factual. And this is about the scripture. And as it seems, the same rule has been applied in translation. A good translator is someone who's factual. Okay. And I gave out some examples before. Okay. I brought this one from the Argentinian president. But the thing is, this cannot be omitted. If the information is needed for the reader is paying or should be offered all the information necessary. We cannot cut off something because it's my criteria as a translator that this is not relevant. We have to provide everything that is in the original document that has to be in the translated version of a document. The flowery and redundant nature of many stock Spanish phrases, especially formulas. In the case of speeches and business letters and all that, sometimes it's replaced by omitting things. Okay, so take a look. Say, how would you put something in English that will work on a formal letter, like, without any motive, I take this welcome opportunity to express to you my highest consideration and regards. All that, we cannot write that, right? So we need to find appropriate replacements, and those risk omission because you will not say exactly what is in the original Spanish document that you're translating into English. So it's a challenge that the translator assumes, right? Always a problem. It's always a problem. Okay. Okay, so what else to say? Without going too far. Okay, both languages, English and Spanish, have filler words which add nothing to the content of a message and can and should be omitted in translation. Read this. This is not my words. I'm extracting this from a source. English sometimes pairs sets of words which are essentially synonyms and are thus redundant. Doublets. These are bold and courageous, strangers and foreigners, dirt and grime, and so forth. Some of these represent a fossilized characteristic dating from the time when English was subjected to two cultural tendencies, Anglo and Saxon. When words with roots from both cultures were frequently used. English also sometimes does this with pairs of Latin and Anglo-Saxon words. Spanish translation could efficiently reduce this to one word without losing the meaning. Nevertheless, in legalistic writing, doublets and double words, those are necessary. I cannot think of a list, but there are quite a few of those cases. If you look for that, you're going to find them. That legal vocabulary in Spanish takes a lot of that, and that is coming from the Napoleonic codes. Okay, that's the code law. That's part of the law. That's the nature of those documents. So at times, prepositions and other individual words may have an idiomatic meaning which should not be translated and can thus be legitimately omitted. Okay, look at this. In the case of, less formal, we see she's on her way down. Ella está bajando. Okay. Okay. I'm omitting a bit here. Okay? Está en vía de bajada could be a little bit more literal, but I don't have to be literal, I have to be functional. So ella está bajando. That type of translation sacrifices a bit, but it's more functional. Or speed it up for rápido, okay? One word, very economic. As was the case with addition, translator needs to be aware of the possibilities and sometimes the requirement to add or omit to keep the translation accurate and idiomatic in the target language. I have a practice here that I think we're going to be developing tomorrow. And that practice has corrections, have several practices here for us to take care of. But we will not do any of that because I'm going to recap this very same topic tomorrow morning on theory of translation before we get into some interesting exercises. I hope you're going to be discussing them. It's 11:55 in my clock. I don't know if we could proceed with the ending of session through the organizers. Thank you.
Hello, I guess we can conclude for today if that's what the facilitator has decided upon. Just a quick note. Make sure that you keep up with the information that was provided to you today. And we would like to thank each and every one of you for being here and participating, as well as the facilitator, Professor Rafael Cárdenas. It was really an enjoyable session with a lot of information that is quite useful. Professor, before we end, Professor Ortega, do you